whichever is your choice. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as distributed?
So move.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, our first item in staffing as it relates to COVID-19 is Families First Coronavirus Response Act, paid sick leave and expanded family medical leave, and I will ask Nick to bring this subject up. Nick Gregory, the city administrator, if you're on GoToMeeting, and if we need to supplement, Tammy Seeley will add any detail that's needed.
Yeah, and also Jeff Houston's on the line as well to chime in as well. After working through the regulations and receiving guidance from the Department of Labor, there's a little bit more clarification we've got in defining on some of the definitions for first responders that was given as a potential exemption as part of their new guidelines. Staff and the city attorney reviewed to make a number of recommendations based upon that. Following motions recommends to formalize the city of McPherson's treatment for permitted exemptions under the Families First Coronavirus Act. Our recommendation is that motion pursuant to applicable federal law, including regulations issued by the Secretary of Labor, the following personnel should be deemed emergency responders under the Emergency Family and Medical Act, and therefore excluded from the paid sick leave and expanded family medical leave. And I will, when I read these, I make sure you read the sentence immediately after, because it does give some discretion as well for each of the commissioners over the applicable area where there's first responders to give them some leniency to be able to do that. Sworn law enforcement is first, firefighters regardless of rank, employed by the McPherson Fire Department, employees of the wastewater department, employees of Public Works Department, and the governing body members over the applicable departments may grant discretionary leave. And when we say discretionary leave in conjunction with the Families First leave, so they can grant it if they so choose. But if we get into a point where we have some critical staffing issues, they could pull that from any of those that they consider first responders and are listed in 1 through 4. Or equivalent to such emergency leave, depending on the circumstances, at the sole discretion without further action of the governing body. So that gives, for all of those that have first responders that are listed under here, that gives them the authority to do it on a limited basis if we can do that and reasonably continue to operate. So that's kind of where we left this at. Jeff, do you want to chime in on anything else as it relates to that? Now, we just found out, I think it was Friday, from the league sent an update that the Department of Labor had expanded a definition for first responders. So this was something we just found out very recently. And you got to understand the Department of Labor's coming out with these regulations on the fly. So anything else to add, Jeff?
I would just say I view this more as a flexibility model from the city for essential services that we have to be able to move forward with. Nick's right, the law was passed on the 15th, but we were told to wait for guidance that the law would become effective on the 2nd. Friday they gave us guidance and said it's going to be effective on the 1st instead. So this is one of those situations where knowing what's coming up is very difficult. So I think it's in the city's best interest to maintain as much flexibility as possible. The out at the bottom of the motion allows us to treat everybody in an equitable manner unless we get ourselves into a situation
Do you need to say something with regard to emergency leave versus discretionary leave as an explanation?
Yeah, and I was not as careful with my language as I wish I would have been now looking at it. When we're talking about emergency leave in this first motion, we're only talking about COVID-related leave under this new statute. Further on, you're going to get a discretionary leave where I say vacation and other discretionary leave. In that, I'm thinking of things like funeral leave that we have, where we mess with it a little bit. As far as the discretionary leave in this motion, what I am saying is that if you, for example, the mayor, that if Chief Golden comes to you and says, look, I've got somebody with daycare issues, I need to let them off for a couple of days, and I think it will resolve itself, you certainly can authorize that as a COVID-related leave within your discretion. But if he comes to you and says, we've got an issue, I can't lose this person, then this law would not necessarily be applicable to them. So it puts it in your discretion for the future.
It's not really the discretion. It's not really the discretionary leave. It's the family's first leave. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So maybe if someone makes the motion, you might change it to discretionary to family first, emergency leave, emergency related leaves.
Yeah, I'm going to make the motion, it looks like, so I think in the thing it says under emergency family and medical leave. I don't see anything on, I do down there. I'll
It's
say-
on the bottom.
Yeah, say,
Yeah, on the last one.
Third to bottom, last
so
line.
you want to repeat the family first coronavirus leave.
Yeah,
Okay.
where it says.
Got
under
you, I got
discretionary.
you.
Any, this,
Okay. Any questions? Okay,
Public Works Department on, so was that meant to say
It-
street department or everybody? Because wastewater is public works, street department is public works, everything is public works, but all of it.
And he's going to read that here in a second.
well, and I'll tell you, the Department of Labor tried to do their best to define what emergency responders is, but they didn't do very good at responding what public works is, so. I mean, what my recommendation to Larry is, if we can be flexible with public works, I mean, it's not as critical. If we can be flexible, we could potentially grant that leave, as long as we don't get down to a point where we can't operate the city because everybody's off, and we get to that point. So that's how I.
The regulation is that public works or who we've declared as public works prior to this incident. So we can't declare the entire city public works now and try to get through a loophole. But if we have a consistent history of declaring a position part of public works, then it would fall under this regulation.
Okay.
okay, any other questions? All right, I would like to move that pursuant to the applicable federal law, including regulations issued by the Secretary of Labor, the following personnel shall be deemed emergency responders under the Emergency Family and Medical Leave Act, and therefore excluded from the paid sick leave or expanded family and medical leave. First, sworn law officers. Next, firefighters regardless of rank employed by the McPherson Fire Department. Third, employees of wastewater department. And fourth, employees of the Public Works Department. The governing body member over the applicable department may grant Families First Coronavirus Response Act paid sick leave or extended family medical leave less than or equivalent to such emergency leave depending on the circumstances in their sole discretion without further action of the governing body.
I second that motion.
Do you want to have any further discussion?
Tammy?
just ask that, we will just, on a case-by-case, come to you and ask.
Exactly,
How we want to handle each request that we get.
exactly.
Okay. So we're on a case-by-case basis, and anything that's over public lands and facilities will be brought to Commissioner Mel, and anything that's over public works, streets, any of that area, and the wastewater will come to Commissioner Weens. Anything that's in health and safety, fire, police, EMS, if we have anything that we have to work with there, and the CVB will come directly to me. Okay, we have a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous, and the motion passes. You can go on to the next
Okay.
item.
In order to preserve the critical staffing levels, it's crucial that we limit the ability to travel to high infectious COVID-19 areas of the country. Limitations on leave usage is the only effective way for the city to control the availability of travel and use of vacation other than discretionary leave during this outbreak. Staff recommends that vacation leave be restricted during the current COVID-19 outbreak. The following recommendation is made to the governing body. Motion that until further notice, any vacation or discretionary leave, whether already scheduled or not, is subject to cancellation at the discretion of the applicable department head, and that any caps of the total amount of any vacation accrual shall be suspended until further action of the governing body. This will be analyzed and monitored weekly by administration and the governing body, because we do meet, the EOC is meeting once a week. Once federal and state health regulators recommend it's safe to commence travel, the City Commission will have independent authority to lift these restrictions. And we also recommend that during this time that vacation and other discretionary leave is not allowed. We recommend that we lift all the caps on vacation. So if I have somebody that's towards the top of their vacation leave, that we'd lift the cap and on a temporary basis while we're going through this, so somebody's not losing vacation. So if, for example, their cap is 180 hours and they're not allowed to take vacation for the next 2 months, they could have additional hours on top of that.
Exactly, good.
Okay,
I have a big question on that.
yeah,
Once the cap is put back in place, I assume the employees will be given a certain amount of time to get
Sure.
it back there.
That's right.
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah, we'll have to consider that. I mean, obviously, we're not. They may not even be able to use it right away from that perspective. So we'll have to decide when we're going to lift that cap off of it. So.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd like to move that until further notice, any vacation and other discretionary leave, whether already scheduled or not, is subject to cancellation at the discretion of the applicable department head, and that any caps on the total amount of any vacation accrual shall be suspended until future action of the governing body.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been seconded. Is there any other discussion that you want to have on this? We want to come up and talk at a microphone so everybody can hear you.
The only thing I would like to say is that if people are sick, we do want them to stay home. That doesn't, the vacation is one thing, but also if somebody is ill, we're encouraging them to stay home and
Exactly.
not come to work.
It's a good point.
I didn't want that to be lumped in there that there's no sick leave allowed to be taken either, but if somebody's sick, we need them to be gone.
Yeah.
To take sick leave to go out of state is a whole different issue.
Right, exactly. But
Right.
if you're sick, please stay home.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that doesn't mean coronavirus only. It means any sickness. Do not come here. Part of everything that we're doing this morning is we don't have a great redundancy in our staff. So it's imperative that in a period like we're going through, that we have to keep everybody healthy and being able to function as much as possible. And once this is passed, we'll go back to whatever the new normalcy is going to be. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. We can go on to the next item, critical staffing going forward plan.
Administration, Human Resources, and Legal discussed concerns individually with the governing body yesterday and their respective department heads about steps to preserve staffing levels and the instance of an outbreak related to COVID-19 among certain department staff populations. We discussed sanitation procedures, distancing, split shifts, staggered staff start times and locations, and other strategies for social distancing during the outbreak. Following those discussions, we recommended a number of steps be taken or maintained with individual departments because of the nature, because of the specialty nature work and limited size of staffs at wastewater treatment division. We're recommending that specific action be taken to split shifts at wastewater. Wastewater is they have operators that there's a significant amount of time you have to spend and very, very specialized in how that's treated. There's some specialty training that applies to using the sewer truck that goes out and cleans. And we absolutely need to keep that portion of the city going. And because of the sizes of our staff, because of the limited size of our staff, I think doing some split shifts is critical. And the recommendation we're making is that wastewater department immediately move to split shifts of 1 week on and 1 week off, and that those be split between in such a way that we have enough people to go run the sewer truck and enough to actually run the plant in any given week. So it would be 1 week on, 1 week off, and we keep those crews separated entirely. So if one set of those crews was to get sick, then they would be expected to run the entire plant. We'll do a number of sanitation related things when the crew is coming off. So we make sure that the germs aren't just right there, and the opportunity to catch the virus from another portion of that wastewater staff, that it would be there, that we provide that limitation. There are another number of other methods we're also recommending for other departments. We're going to be doing some staggered, have people come in at different times, have people report to different locations in several departments. We absolutely discussed almost every facet of the city operations when we did this. We met with each of you three and each of your departments, and at this point, I think the one that we do recommend that we do split shifts for would be wastewater at this point.
I move that the wastewater department immediately move to split shifts of 1 week on and 1 week off to help ensure continuity of operations, and those employees off on any given week are subject to phone consultation and recall in the department head's discretion. The department head may, after such shifts dependent upon the circumstances with the concurrence of the Commissioner of Public Works or designee, without further action of the governing body.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions that need to be raised? Seeing no go ahead.
I would like to make it clear, especially if the wastewater department is listening in, that if you're on an off shift, that's still a paid position. That's why you're subject to recall and subject to phone consultation. That it's not, you're getting your pay cut in half.
That's correct. Thank you.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, on the second motion, since it's all departments, I'll make the motion that all department heads shall take all steps reasonably necessary to protect the city workforce, including enforcing social distancing to the greatest extent possible and disinfecting of equipment and work surfaces, including but not limited to A, staggering beginning of shifts and breaks, B, keeping work crews from mixing, and C, conducting briefings and meetings virtually or with enhanced distances.
I'll second it.
Discussion. This will mean probably where we shift into police department, that we're either going to find a way to do this virtually, or we can hold them on a nice day in the parking lot with everybody 6 feet or greater in a bullhorn. Bullhorn's a joke. No, it's Todd Martin's. It's Todd Martin's. Anyway, we will do what we can in this whole hygiene and social distancing to try to do the best we can. And just for information, we have been for the last couple of weeks, even on the patrol cars, cleaning each patrol car and disinfecting before the next person comes on duty, because we use the same car for 3 different shifts, so we got to be sure we don't pass from shift to shift. As you turn over the car to somebody else, it has to be disinfected before it's passed on.
And taking temperatures before.
Yeah, and we are taking temperatures. If there is any of the other fire department is doing the same thing, but if there is any other department that would like to take temperatures before somebody starts to work, we can get not a medical grade thermometer, but a thermometer. We just touch the forehead and we'll know whether somebody has a fever or not. And if they have a fever, then that will mean that they should take a sick day and see their provider, so we know for sure what that is. And the chances are right now, if you look at all the data, 97% of the people that get tested do not have the coronavirus. We're looking for the needle in the haystack. We're looking for the 3% of the people that do. And that's not readily known. Some people could look healthy and still have the coronavirus. Other people could be really sick and have type A flu. So that's why we do all the things that we do. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would note for the department heads listening that the Department of Labor has declared COVID-19 as a direct threat under the Americans with Disabilities Act. So taking temperatures and asking some of those medical questions that would otherwise be prohibited under the law is fair for COVID-19. So everything we're doing is under that new guidance.
Thank you.
Good.
Anything else? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
The last item was something we added this morning. During the incident period that involves COVID-19 period, it may be beneficial to establish a second standing weekly commission meeting. If a second meeting's not needed, it can be canceled in advance, but the spot could actually be scheduled in the event that actions will be needed during the week. Just so you know, commission meets on Mondays. Our EOC's meeting on Tuesdays, and so having something midweek in case something comes up, instead of having to announce a special meeting, we just have a standing meeting date on a Wednesday or Thursday, depending on what works for you gentlemen. And then if we don't need it, we just announce that we're not going to actually have a midweek meeting. So that's one thing that the mayor brought up, and I think is not a bad idea.
yeah. Could I ask the other 2 commissioners, is Wednesday or Thursday a better date?
Either one's fine with me. Wednesday's fine with me.
Wednesday? Okay. I would like to move that we have a second standing weekly commission meeting during the COVID-19 incident until further notice.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I have two items I'd like to bring up under other business that I've received calls on. Since we are not golfing till at least April the 19th, would the golf course allow walking on the cart paths for people when we ran for several years, primarily started with Dr. Thomas and then I worked with him. We took Sundays from 4 on, because there's not that much golf after that, for people to walk as part of that and see the beauty of the city asset. But while we have no golf going on, would we be willing to open up to walkers, or I guess, or joggers, on the golf path through April 19th?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know that we need any action, just if you will communicate with the golf course staff that
They
people,
are aware, on the closing signs, it says the golf course is closed to all golfing activities, but the open space is open for walking and using the trails.
okay, so those of you that may be looking in that would like to walk or jog the course, do it. I will tell you, if you take a dog with you, take the right bag to pick it up. And if we have too much crap going on, we will eliminate walking on the golf course. We'll do our own fertilizing.
Sounds good.
Okay. My second one is I have a request from a church. This Sunday is Palm Sunday, and they would like to pass out the palm frond. What they would like to do is have people stay in their car, drive up. They will hand the palm through the car window and to the people as they come by. And then they would like to make a loop in the town of all the cars that received a palm frond. And I think the loop could be bordered on the south by Kansas here, and on the north by Northview, on the east by Maxwell, and on the west by Main Street. So that's a fairly decent rectangle for them to make their loop. And when they come back to their church, they can go on home, see streaming service, or do whatever they want to do with the rest of that Sunday, since we will not be able to gather for Palm Sunday or for Easter.
I'm fine with that.
Sure.
Is there gonna be traffic control needed for that?
I don't believe so.
The only thing I can think is if they need to wear gloves, they're gonna be handing it out. and they
Yeah.
won't touch it.
They know that,
I'm sure they will.
yeah. Okay? Do we need anything? It's just, we're
I'd
aware.
just say, that's going to be acceptable, and I don't know if you really need to take any formal action to do that, but
We okay, city attorney?
Yes, under the governor's order, religious services are allowed. You wouldn't have a gathering of over 10 in a confined space. Of course, ask them to use the cautions, the gloves, the masks, those kinds of things. But I think you're fine from a legal standpoint.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, I will communicate that to the church that requested, but it may spread to several other churches that want to do something similar to that, because they may already have their standing order for palm fronds, and they're gonna
I'm sure they
come in.
distribution, sure.
Yeah, so this is a way to do it. Okay. That's all I have. Does anyone have anything else they want to bring up? Last comment is, the president has asked us to go another 30 days of really doubling down and obeying what we have. The state order for essential functions has to be decided by the state. And you can go to, these are capital letters, KEFF at kansas.gov, ks.gov. And the state is supposed to issue more detailed set of guidelines, so it's not these general categories that I read on Monday. If you think you need an exception, there is a URL on the city site where you go to the hub site, the URL that has hub in its name, and click on that, and you can get the email address that you have to address. And there is, I think, a 12-page or an 8-page form to apply for an exception. And the state will grant your exception or not grant your exception. That's till the next order comes out. If they come out with more detailed thing and you know what it is, then you may not be so many have to apply to the state. If we have a lot of people across the state applying, it may go slow if it's going to one small part of the state to respond. So be patient with them on this, and we will follow up. The other thing that I would say on unemployment, we have a backlog in the phone number for unemployment to the state. The best thing is not to call the number. To go online, if you don't have a computer, go to a friend that has a computer and fill out the form. Even if it says you're not eligible, send it anyhow. They will get back to you for clarification. They got over 900,000 calls yesterday. There's no way that you can handle that. One person admitted on Wichita Channel News that they called over 500 times. Well, if you keep hanging up because you waited too long and dial right back, that's how we get to 900,000 calls in a day. If you call and don't use the online procedure, which you should be doing, if you call, do not hang up. Stay there until somebody gets back to you, even if you have to wait an hour. But preferably, you'll use the online piece to do this. It's a tremendous overload. There's no way you could have gone from, like in our county, 2.5, 2.6 unemployment to now so many businesses are shut down. And the last thing I'd like to say, if you know that you're not an essential function, please close. If we do not have businesses closing, the state will probably come down with another order that we will be having a legal process to ask you to close and possibly to cite you. Don't want to do that. We have done a terrific job of almost everything that's been asked of us, we've done on a voluntary basis. And this is what we just need to keep on doing. Practice it as best you can, and we need to get through the next 2 weeks. If we can get through the next 2 weeks, hopefully we'll hit the peak, and now we're going to be on the downward side. That doesn't mean we're out of the woods. And even when we get past the peak, we still have to have all of the personal and family discipline to keep it going down. If we think we hit the peak and we relax, we're going to be right back challenging for another peak. So we have to get down through this thing. If you watch the models that have been done on the news, even if we get to where the peak is, we're probably into mid to late June before we really are getting down close to nothing really happening, maybe even into July. So, we will be making decisions in the future on whether we have certain summer activities or we don't have summer activities. But if it lasts that long, we are going to take a hit on revenue, and so we're not going to spend money to set up summer activities and then not be able to have them. So we will conserve expense, as we will have to in many areas, because we will have a reduced revenue this year. The other thing is, you can look on the hub site for the CARE Act and different things that are there for business, webinars and different things. We've tried to put some of that out there. It may be under the industrial tab or just at the top. And some of the industrial things we can move all to one sentence and then put any of these webinars and things to do after that, so that we try to help you all you can. If you're looking for a webinar or you need information, you can always call the city and we will try to direct you to something that will help you to either put in for your weekly unemployment, which with the state is $300 or $350, and then the federal government will add another $600 on top of that, and that will take 2 to 3 weeks to all kick in. But there is financial relief on the way. If you're a small business and you can get a loan, or even a not-for-profit, there are places where you help you to figure out what your loan is, to fill out the form, take it to a bank that will process that SBA loan. And then when you get that, if you follow all the things and don't lay people off and that type of thing, it will be forgiven. If you stub your toe in there somewhere and violate it, it will become not the loan will not turn to a grant and be forgiven. It will have to be repaid. In larger industries, which we have over 500, I'm sure that their corporate staffs are well aware of what they have to do to receive grants to cover what they're doing during this time too. We have a lot of critical industry here for medications, for fuels, and we'll keep on running those as best we can and working with them. Anything from either commissioner?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to the city staff for all the work that they've done the last couple of weeks. Going through, working out the issues, the motions that we just passed, and I will be the first to admit that we're not without some glitches in there, and we're going to work our way through each and every one of them. If you have an issue with part of it or a little bit of it or all of it or whatever, why come in and see Tammy or any of the staff here at the city office, and we'll work our way through it. And just help us out, and all we're here for is to try to keep things running as smooth as possible, and just bear with us, and we'll work our way through this. We're all in this together. Thank
City
you.
building is closed. Please call Tammy.
Yeah, please call. That's right.
Okay. Last, if you have contact with the first responder, tell them how much you appreciate them being out there
Yes.
for you. Hopefully, you're not going to have contact with an EMS person, but if you're able, tell them, tell hospital workers. They're working overtime to make these things work. The people that you will see most frequently are in the grocery store you frequent. They are working extra hard to stock shelves, to wipe things down. They are closing in the evening to disinfect their facilities and have them ready for you early in the morning again. So be sure you tell those people and those essential businesses how much you appreciate being able to go there and to still be able to shop. And with any luck at all, with all the barbershops being closed, maybe I will have hair by the end of this thing. With that, I move to adjourn.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.